Hello to all my fellow glorious Gaians. Thank you for joining me, Amber, on my channel Guidance Through Gaia, where we do pick a card tarot readings. If this is your first time visiting the channel, welcome. I hope that you find something here that you enjoy and is useful for you. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for giving me another chance to read for you. I am offering personal readings. You can contact me at guidancethroughgaia@gmail.com. If you are enjoying this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed and would like to, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to be alerted as to whenever I upload a new video. Wow. So if you were here for my last video, I am indeed wearing the exact same clothes on a different day. It's actually the next day. Because unless it's visibly stained or smelly, I usually don't wash an article of clothing after one wear, just to kind of it's more environmentally friendly. Also, I have to pay to wash my clothes, so that gets expensive. Today we are doing a pick a card reading that was requested a while ago. So a few months back, I did a reading about would the person on your mind be a good parent? And someone was interested in having a reading about kind of from the viewer's perspective, like, would we be a good parent? I kind of tweaked that. What we're going to look at is what kind of parent you would be. And so we are going to use pre-shuffled oracle cards to look at the description of what kind of parent you would be. Then we're going to use tarot to look at your predominant parenting style, your strengths and your weaknesses, how all of that will affect your connection with your child or your children. And then we're going to just kind of get a statement from the universe, some guidance. So we have 3 piles here. The first one is with, I believe it's a smoky quartz. The second pile is with this tiger's eye. And the third pile is moss agate. And I'll tell you what, the third pile was kind of a pain in the butt to get a stone with, because the first one was another smoky quartz. So then I kind of shuffled around again in my little bag of stones and got another tiger's eye. The third time is the charm. So go ahead and use your intuition to ascertain which pile you feel most drawn to, and I will see you there. Bye. Hey there, pile number 1. You chose the smoky quartz, and this is going to be your reading on what kind of parent you would be. So the smoky quartz deals with emotional healing, and so we're going to see how that relates to these cards here. First off, we have scrying mirror and shadow. We have this adorable little card, and it is number 19, the Uniter. And it says, I know love has come to unite me with my beloved. We have number 23 with moon, emotions. And we have full moon in Pisces with forgive. So I was really excited as I was pulling these cards, especially after I did a quick Google search for the significance of smoky quartz and spirituality, how it's tied to emotions. And we've got forgive, with Pisces. And Pisces, being a water sign, tends to be very much an emotional sign. And then we've got moon with emotions. Then the scrying mirror with shadow. It all just kind of fits perfectly. So I feel that as a parent, you are going to be somebody who is very emotionally vulnerable with your children. If we look at the scrying mirror and the shadow, first of all, I feel that you may be somebody who tries to be able to predict the events that your children encounter. I feel like you're somebody who is going to be very present in your child's life, somebody who is going to observe and take note of like when you think that they're heading down a direction, or that they're going to be impacted in a positive way, and especially observing when you think that they're going to be affected in a negative way. The concept of shadow deals with kind of like the darker aspects of the self, of life, things that may be difficult to confront. And so I think you are especially concerned with making sure that your children are safe physically and emotionally. I feel that you are somebody who is going to try to make sure that their experience in life, especially as children and adolescents, is as healthy as possible. I also feel that you are going to be somebody who very likely is open with your children about hardships that you have faced, before they came around, or even hardships that you are currently facing as you are raising them. Because I feel like you're somebody who is going to understand that these aren't things we should attempt to hide from children, that we shouldn't attempt to shelter them, but instead bring awareness to them and allow our experiences to be teachable moments. You may also have had a childhood of your own where you kind of learned the qualities of parenthood that you don't want to exhibit. And so you are taking those experiences and deciding to really transmute them so that you become the kind of parent in those ways that you would have wanted at that age. With this Uniter card, I know love has come to unite me with my beloved. So this is it's a beautiful card. And with this being Cupid right here, I feel that is very indicative of you still have, I think, this kind of playful spirit with your children. I definitely do see that you are going to position yourself and assert yourself as, the authority figure or an authority figure in their life. There's not going to be any kind of confusion about that. But that you are also going to be able to be playful with your children. And there's going to be this youthfulness that you have around them that you may not have in other areas of your life. This card also talks about children being born out of love. And so whether these children, whether you are with the other biological parent, or even if like you adopt, if you adopt a child with somebody, you might be with that person for the duration of your lives, or there might be a separation down the road. But at the very least, there is going to be love there for the other parental unit at the time of like the conception or bringing that child into the home. And I would ascertain that there's still going to be like a lingering sense of love, even if the two of you part ways down the road. Probably like a very much mutual respect. I think that if you were to separate from the partner, you would be somebody who would be a very positive role model, and somebody who would excel at like co-parenting. The book talks about these arrows being on fire and there being passion and love. And I think that's something that you're really going to feel for your children. You're not going to be the kind of parent that's apathetic and uninterested, kind of doing things on autopilot and taking for granted the amount of effort and care that it takes to be a parent. You are going to be somebody who feels very fiercely loyal and loving and passionate towards your child or your children. And I think that, that's something that is going to help you maintain a relationship with them as they get older. We have the full moon in Pisces with forgive. So I feel like as a parent, you are going to be somebody that they can understand, they can come to. And even if you have to establish like boundaries, if you have to act in tough love, at some point, I don't think this ever deeply impacts your relationship with your children in a negative way. Of course, being younger, we never like to get into trouble. We never like to be grounded or punished or reprimanded. Sometimes, we tend to think that we know best and parents just don't understand. But even, at some point, during these incidents, if you do have to establish tough love and strict boundaries, your children are going to get to a point where they understand down the road, like, that it was necessary and the reasons why you did it. I feel that you are somebody that your children are going to be able to trust. They know that, like, you care for them and you love them and you would never cast them out. There is a mutual sense of respect and trust here, which I think is amazing because not all of us had that growing up, and that may be something that you didn't have with your parent or your parents. Full moons are also about things coming to an end and harvesting the rewards of that cycle. And so it's kind of like being able to have an intense discussion with your children about maybe like how their behavior was inappropriate or they were irresponsible or inconsiderate or something, but also acknowledging like that's not going to be held against them. You're not going to be a kind of parent that holds a grudge. Your children are going to understand that, like, you are willing to forgive and that it doesn't change how you feel about them or the love that you have for them. I also feel that you are very likely going to be a parent who, when you make a mistake, when you behave in a way that may be inappropriate or inconsiderate, like, you will approach your child or your children and express your apologies and how you were wrong and potentially like what you can do to correct it or how you were willing to prevent that in the future. And that's not something that every parent does. I think that's hard for a lot of people to do as parents because we kind of grew up with this idea that, the parent's word is end all be all, that a child really shouldn't question it. And a lot of things were justified because, as, well, I'm the adult, I'm the parent, so just do it. And I feel like you're going to take a different approach from that. So your children are really going to understand that even though you are the adult and that you are an authority figure in their life, that you aren't an authoritarian, you're not a tyrant. You are willing to have discussions with them, and that especially as they get older, that you do respect their autonomy and their freedoms, as long as they are expressing themselves in a way that is healthy and productive, with the full moon in Pisces card and the moon card over here with emotions and even the scrying mirror card, I definitely feel that spirituality may be important in your relationship with your children. I feel that you are somebody who is going to respect, I think, whatever path your child or your children choose, whether they decide that they are Buddhist, whether they want to explore, Christianity, Hinduism, if they choose to be atheist, or any other plethora of religious or spiritual affiliations. But I think that you are somebody who is going to live authentically according to your spiritual belief And this may be something that you kind of end up connecting with your children over. They may be interested in learning from you. And even if their path slightly differs, I think they're going to take aspects of your belief and integrate it into their life. And I think it's going to be really beautiful. Yeah. So this is, I think, this is a beautiful energy, and it's very emotionally centered. So I definitely think you're going to be open and honest about your feelings, and your children are going to learn how to be that way as well. So we're going to look at kind of what your primary method of parenting is. I'm curious to see, like, are you going to be more of a person who parents through like words and intellect? Are you going to be a parent that, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of cups cards here. Are you going to be like a gift giver, an action taker? Like, what method of parenting style you will exhibit? So what is group number 1's parenting style going to be? What is group 1's parenting style going to be? So we have the Queen of Wands in reverse. Interesting. What is group 1's parenting style? We have the Sun. That's beautiful. And we have the Ten of Wands in reverse. That's so interesting. We have all fire energy here. So with the Queen of Wands in reverse, I feel like you may not be a heavily authoritative parent. Although, as I already previously mentioned, the energy that I'm getting from here is that it will be established that you are an authority figure. But I feel like you're going to be a parent that doesn't feel the need to assert yourself as the dominant individual in the connection consistently. I also feel with the Queen of Wands in reverse, you might not be like somebody who engages with your children in like really creative ways. For instance, you may not be the type of person who sits and does crafts with your children. You may not be the type of person who I don't know, we'll just say like takes them on vacations all the time. But with the Sun card here, because you might be more of a person that values emotional experiences over like material experiences. You may end up being someone who is pretty busy in your life. Or like, so, I don't know, there was this one, I don't remember if it was an article or a video, but it was like a woman admitting, she's like, I don't like to play with my child. I love my child, but I'm not a big play person. So you may be somebody who doesn't like play too much with your kids, but you have, I think, a very strong bond with them on an emotional level. The Sun indicates that you are definitely going to be somebody who prioritizes like cheer and happiness in your family. I think that's something that, especially like with this shadow card here, you want a happy home. And so I think you will be somebody who is very much the kind of parent that praises a child. You know, like, hey, Jimmy, like, I don't know, I like the way you styled your hair today. Or like, Susan, you got awesome grades. Or, you know, I really appreciate the way that you communicated with me. So I think you're going to be somebody who highlights a lot of the positive qualities and behaviors that your children exhibit. And I would say that you probably joke around a lot with them. I think there's going to be a lot of humor and a lot of laughter. And then with this 10 of Wands in reverse, I feel like this is really saying that you are prioritizing making their childhood and their adolescence as stress-free as possible, which doesn't mean that like they're not going to have any responsibilities, that they're not going to be held accountable, but just like really understanding, I think, as a parent, how your choices and your behaviors can affect a child. And understanding that, especially as your child or your children get older, there are going to be outside factors that impact their life. And if you end up having like a child that maybe has, you know, a developmental delay or a physical handicap or something, you know, really understanding like, okay, this is going to present a challenge to my child. So we are going to figure out ways in which we can reduce that challenge, you know? And so there's just this kind of energy of maybe not being super physically active with your child. I mean, if your child were to be involved in any kind of extracurricular activity, I definitely think that you would be somebody who would go out and support them in that. But I think that recreation-wise, especially as the child gets older, there's probably going to be a little bit of a gap between the two of you, but you are going to be highly supportive and be somebody who prioritizes bringing laughter and happiness into their life, and within reason, giving them as easy a life as is possible. You know, like for instance, if you, I don't know, if you're a single parent and there's a job the next state over that is like your dream job, but your kids have known their friends since they were infants, you would kind of weigh the cost of that. Like, this is something I really want to do with my life, but it would tear my children away from their childhood friends and everything that they've known. And that's going to be a major adjustment for them. So what's the best thing to do here? Well, you know, the job that I have right now, I can tolerate. You know, I like my coworkers. I've been at my job for 10 years, and so I know what I'm doing, so there's this kind of stability there. So I think I can hold out for a while, you know, like maybe when the kids are adults, maybe I will consider like venturing out of state to pursue my career. So we're going to take a look at some of your strengths as a parent. What are going to be some of pile one's strengths as a parent? The 9 of Wands. And this always makes me think of the Moon card, you know, being able to see through things very clearly. It's so interesting that, you know, here I am, like, thinking we're going to get so much water energy, and we've gotten all fire right now. What are some of Group 1's strengths going to be as a parent? What are some of Group 1's strengths going to be as a parent? Oh my God, literally almost all fire energy. We've got the 7 of Wands. We've got the Devil in reverse, which is Earth. And then we have the 8 of Wands. Wow. Wow, this is just incredible, guys. I think, I don't know, I'm blown away because this just to me sounds like a parent that is very, very like passionate about their children and somebody who is going to be there for them. So the 9 of Wands as a strength card, you know, what I feel is that in conjunction with this 10 of Wands in reverse, like you are going to be willing to shoulder a lot of, you know, stress and like soldier on through it. There's going to be this kind of role that you take on that, you know, you would do anything for your kids. And you will do whatever it takes to give them the best life possible. So say, for instance, you are partnered, but like it's a one income household. Like maybe you are the breadwinner and you are let go for some reason. Maybe they had to cut your department, you know, and do some layoffs and you were impacted. You might internally feel the struggle of that. And it might be something that, especially if your kids are older, you might talk with them about and be honest about being stressed about. But you are also going to have the strength to like not give up. You're going to be the person out there submitting applications, going to interviews, doing side jobs maybe, you know, until you can find something. Like I could see you being someone who picks up like being an Uber driver, you know, or being like a DoorDash driver just to earn some income while you're searching. You could also even be somebody who's willing to do temp jobs, you know, temp to hire until you find something. The 7 of Wands as a strength card, you are willing to defend your children 100%. The Devil in reverse can talk about being able to surrender like pride. And so, as I've already mentioned, you know, I feel that you're going to be somebody who is able to admit to your children, like, I was wrong in this instance. I'm sorry. I overreacted. I didn't understand your point of view. And then the 8 of Wands, you're really going to make your children a priority. You know, the 8 of Wands is about movement, it's about swiftness, and so your children are going to know that they can depend upon you. They never have to question if you're going to be there for them. So we're going to look to see what some of your weaknesses as a parent might be. What are some of Group 1's weaknesses as a parent? And I'm really interested in learning that because like all of this energy so far is, I don't know, the ideal parent to me. So what kind of weaknesses is Group 1 going to have as a parent? What are Group 1's weaknesses as a parent? I don't know how this wants to go. So we've got the 4 of Wands. About have the entire freaking suit of Wands here, I swear. And the 7 of Swords in reverse. We get one more for like what weaknesses Group 1 may have as a parent. What weaknesses is Group 1 going to have as a parent? And then the 10 of Swords in reverse. Okay. So I think the major theme here that I am seeing, particularly, like, I feel that the Four of Wands and the Seven of Swords in reverse kind of share the same message, which is, I think that your weakness is that you are going to really sacrifice yourself for your family. You know, of course, we want to prioritize our family, but to be a healthy individual, including a healthy parent, we need to also prioritize other things outside of our family. So you may struggle with friendships, like you may not really go out with friends. Um, you may not really engage in any hobbies. You might just be hyper focused on your family to the point where you have no life outside of them and maybe work if you end up being a working person. And that might be because potentially in your past you may not have had the security of your family. You may have felt like your family wasn't there for you, whether emotionally or physically. And so I think you might be trying to overcompensate for that. And so there's going to be that security your children have with, mom, dad, guardian is always going to be there for me. But they're not also going to really be able to see, like, they're not going to be able to see an example from you of what kind of healthy boundaries are, and a sense of balance, like, well, my parents always there, but they never really go out and do things for themselves. They always put us first, and so it's kind of, they don't get to see from you the way in which to balance as kind of like a head of household. And I think that's something that would really benefit them to see. And then this Ten of Swords in reverse. I do want to get a clarifier on that. We've got the Empress in reverse. I think you may end up kind of even though you seem to be somebody who is willing to discuss the problems that you've had or that you are having, I like with your family and being open about that. I feel like with this Ten of Swords in reverse and this Empress in reverse, that you still aren't really mentally processing when things are stressful, when things are overwhelming, when there are challenges ahead. I think you're kind of like acknowledging, like, yeah, this sucks, but you might be so focused on, I can't let this affect me too much. I have to be there for my kids. I can't let them see me worry, that you shove it into a corner of your mind and you put on a mask. Because the Ten of Swords can really talk. It can talk about like collapsing under defeat. It can also, being weary. It can also talk about like releasing like a mental stress like load. And then we've got the Empress in reverse, which to me in this instance is talking about a lack of self-care. And so it might actually be too that at some point you may kind of burn yourself out mentally because you aren't caring for yourself. So finally, I want to look to see, at least finally with the tarot, like what your connection with your children is going to be like. Like what kind of relationship are you going to have with your kids? We've got the High Priestess with, all this moon energy and the scrying mirror makes a lot of sense. What kind of relationship are you going to have? Oh, gosh. Okay. The Seven of Cups and then Temperance. So having the High Priestess, I definitely feel that you were going to be like a trusted source of information and guidance, because the High Priestess is really tuned into her intuition and she knows like the secrets of the universe. And even though you're honest about things that you're struggling with, there may be a certain level of like mysticism that your children experience in understanding you, likely because you're so focused on providing for them that there's almost no room for you to really be yourself in certain ways. So it's kind of like, having this high reverence for somebody and being like in awe of them and having a lot of respect for them, but also seeing them as kind of like mysterious. The Seven of Cups, I feel, is indicating that your relationship with your children is going to be very open. That one thing you're going to prioritize is making sure that your children never really feel too constrained and too restricted. Help them understand that there are always other options out there, whether it's like, if something negative happens to them, there's always a way out of that. Or there's always another cycle coming into being. Allowing them to understand that they don't have to limit themselves in options, like especially as they get older, if they want to go to college or if they don't want to go to college, if they do go to college, what kind of major are they going to get? And helping them understand that like there are different ways of life and they're all valid. And then with this Temperance card, it's just kind of this, because Temperance talks about balance, it's this feeling of like, your children know you are an authority figure, but they also know that they can be open with you and honest with you. And I really think that's such a beautiful energy. So overall, it looks like you're going to have a really good relationship with your children. I would just encourage you to also prioritize yourself, because it's not selfish. There may be times where you feel like it is, but the reality is everything you do is teaching your child. And so being able to prioritize your children and also prioritize yourself is really going to help your child or your children understand what it's like to be a healthy adult, So what is some advice from the universe? And all of these cards relate to a chakra, which we'll kind of get into. What advice does the universe have for group number 1? Ten minutes later. What advice does the universe? Oh, there we go. I love this. Take the weight of the world off your shoulders. And I'm not going to say what chakra this is without looking into it. And I feel like that's really talking a lot about like this Ten of Swords energy and also this Ten of Wands energy. Even though both are in reverse, like you don't have to do everything. It's okay for your children to go through some difficulties. Challenges are how we grow. And also, as long as you keep relationships open with other people, whether it's like a partner or family or friends or whatever, if you need guidance or you need help, there are people who will be able to assist you. Like, you don't have to do it all on your own. I do want to see what chakra this relates to. Oh, it does relate to the throat chakra. You know, which is all about expressing yourself. And oh my God, literally, holy crap, guys. You are a deeply considerate being who wants nothing but the best for yourself and everyone around you. In fact, in times gone by, you have put your own needs behind the needs of loved ones. What did I say? What did I say? Friends, even colleagues, haven't you? But when you detach from your own needs, it can often simply lead you into the depths of despair. Today, the universe is reminding you that you don't need to solve every issue or find an answer to every problem. In fact, by being overly controlling, you are preventing the support of the universe from entering your energy field. So relax. Surrender the weight of the world. Make space for the universe to support you. It knows how much you care, and by taking a step back, you are creating room for the miracles you need and the miracles you deserve. When you let go, you let the universe lead the way. And the vibe of the day is, I surrender the situation and make way for miracles. So there may be times where instead of kind of coming up with a solution for your children, you allow them to problem solve, you know? That's a skill they're going to need to develop. And there may be times where you have to like express your needs to the universe, or even express your needs to other people in your life. But it's important to remember, you're not in this alone. You don't have to shoulder the entire burden by yourself. And honestly, you know, I think you're going to be a really good parent. Just also take care of yourself. So I hope that reading resonated with you, pile number 1. If it did, I would love to hear your comments in the comment box below. And I hope you have a great night. Bye. Hey, group number 2, you picked the Tiger's Eye. So this is going to be your reading on what kind of parent you would be. The Tiger's Eye symbolizes courage and strength. And, you know, I'm so excited because I picked the stones first and at random, and then shuffled the cards. Whatever fell out, I attributed to the stones, you know, one at a time. And it just seems like so far the messages have really aligned. I say that because I know what these cards are. So let's get into it. We have Ritual with Invocation. We have this card right here, and it's number 1, the Warrior. And the statement is, I ask for what I want because I deserve to get what I want. Oh, I get what I want. New Moon in Gemini, think it through. And then number 2 with Flamingo and Fun. So I think it's really interesting that the cards that we have that are numbered are sequential. So we have card number 1 and card number 2. So those numbers may be significant to you. You might be seeing like 111 or 222 or 1212 or 1221, you know, any combination of those. We're going to start with the Ritual card and the Invocation. So I think as a parent, you might be somebody who is a little bit more traditional, and maybe not traditional in the how do I want to say it? Like in the typical sense of the word. You could be somebody who is more conservative in your values, but it could be that you have like traditions from your youth that you apply to your family, or it could be that you create like a system within your family unit. And so, for instance, you may expect that your child or your children participate in some like extracurricular activity. You may be the kind of parent that has to meet their friends and the guardians of their friends before you allow them to like go over to their house, spend the night. You may be somebody who does do like family meals, those types of things. I think that there is going to be a construct that you develop within your family unit, whether that's influenced by the construct you had as a child, or it's one that you devise of your own mind, potentially along with a partner. And so there's going to be this sort of habit within your family, this construct within your family, the system where there are just kind of certain expectations you have and certain ways that your family unit functions. I do see this as something being very tight-knit. You know, I really like this ritual card here because it shows these 4 individuals. And so I do feel that, you know, your family is a close one and that you communicate and you probably do things together. Like, you probably celebrate the major holidays, or, you know, if you are a fan of football, it might be customary that every February you watch the Super Bowl. You might be a family that goes on vacations together, does volunteer work together, has family game nights, that sort of thing. Invocation also makes me think of being somebody who is very action oriented, which I'm going to call upon this warrior card as well. I feel that you're definitely somebody who is a go-getter and somebody who's really going to press upon the importance of taking action towards your goals to your children. You know, if there's something that you want, you've got to work for it. If there's a problem, you have to find a resolution. I think you're to be somebody who is very expressive about the necessity for being proactive and not being passive. With this warrior card, I do see you as somebody who maybe a little bit more of a stern parental figure. You may be somebody who has some strict expectations. You may be somebody who heavily asserts yourself as an authority. I don't necessarily see that in like a negative light. I don't see any indication here that there's any kind of like abuse or manipulation or anything of the sort, but I do feel that you're going to kind of have the mentality of like, this is what I expect of you to do. And there's no room for argument. There's no room for disagreement. I do feel in your family going to be a very strict hierarchy. I also feel with this warrior card that you are somebody who will defend your family, you know, especially since we have with this warrior holding a heart, you know. And one thing this card talks about is that like the warrior is pretty naked, you know. The only armor that he has is this helmet, and that he has a club instead of like an axe or a sword. So he never means to like really harm anybody. It's all about defense. And the helmet is representative of like mental battles. And so I do think with this warrior card and then this new moon in Gemini, think it through. You're going to be somebody who's very cerebral, somebody who's very tactical, very intellectually driven, and I think that's something that you will, whether intentionally or unintentionally, demonstrate to your children. They may adapt the same quality or not, but I think you're somebody who is going to be, as a parent, a person who tries to come up with like rational solutions, breaks problems down into steps so that they can be better conceptualized. And at times there may not be like a lot of emotion attached to it. I feel that you're somebody who does care for your family. I do feel, however, that you may not be somebody who is like overly expressive of like affection or love. That maybe you tend to be more reserved in those respects. And then we have Think It Through, which I think is really interesting with this warrior card. You know, when we think of warriors, we might tend to think of somebody who's a little bit brutish or somebody who kind of acts upon impulse. But with this Think It Through card, that's really indicative of the fact that there is a sense of balance in between that. You know, it's kind of like the pick and choose your battles. I think this is also really painting the picture of what you're going to teach your children in terms of like, you know, you need to think about your actions, or like you need to think about your future. I do feel that you're somebody who is going to be more persistent, that your children have an understanding of what they want to do in life, where they want to go, because you want them to be prepared. So, you know, you might want them to go to college, and you would encourage them to think about that. Like, you know, if you go to college, then you have more opportunities in terms of employment, and you can make more money, which means you can be more financially stable. So if you want to go to college, you need to start thinking about that now, and you can take this time as an adolescent to work towards credits and extracurricular activities and volunteer opportunities, so that you can apply for scholarships that can reduce the cost of your tuition and therefore reduce the amount of debt that you might experience later on in life. If you don't want to go to college, then what are you going to do? You know, I want you to seriously think about what you're going to do in life. Where are you going to go? How are you going to provide for yourself? You know, what are your goals? And it's interesting that we have like the new moon in Gemini, because new moons are all about setting intentions. And I think that's really going to be something that you place a heavy importance upon when you are raising your children. Gemini it can be kind of a difficult sign sometimes, because Gemini, you know, it's the twins, two sides. And so there may be a side of you that is more like endearing and more laid back, and then there may also be kind of like a more strict side. And so your children kind of may have to learn how to, if you don't learn to balance that, they may have to learn to how to kind of operate like through observation of like, what kind of mood is my parent in today? Is that, you know, if this is something that I want, is it something that they are likely going to support right away? Or do I have to kind of manipulate my presentation of this desire so that, and I just saw 1111, manipulate the presentation of this desire to make it seem more appealing and plausible to them. But with Flamingo here, even though I think there's going to be kind of like this sternness to you and this kind of like emotional distance that you may maintain with your children, I think you're also going to be somebody who does have fun with your kids. I think you're going to be the person who plays with your children. I think you're going to be the person who is cracking jokes. I think you are going to have a very lighthearted side. And even though you are going to, I think, expect a lot out of your kids, even potentially from a young age, I think there is also a part of you that's going to understand, like, kids need to be kids. They need to have that freedom. It just may be a struggle for you to be able to determine, like, how you balance that. Like, where should you put the responsibility on your kids, and where should you kind of relax that expectation and allow them just to be children. So we're going to look first at how, like, what your parenting style is, just to get further understanding of, like, if you're going to be more of like a communicator, more emotional, more of a hands-on. So, what is Group 2's parenting style? What is Group 2's parenting style? We've got the Ace of Pentacles. What is Group 2's parenting style? We've got the Judgment card in reverse. Okay, yeah, I see that now. And we've got the Seven of Cups. Very interesting. So, like, we have an assortment of elements here. You know, the first pile really, really surprised me because I expected there to be a lot of Cups cards, but they were primarily Wands, and it was very interesting. I think your parenting style with this Ace of Pentacles is, it looks like it's mostly just going to be practical, you know? This Ace of Pentacles makes me think of you providing small opportunities or beginning opportunities for your children, you know, and then to get them started, you know, when they're kids, like giving them a book to read or putting them in like Taekwondo. But then we've got the Judgment card in reverse. And that makes me reflect back upon like this ritual, the Warrior, and the Think It Through card, which is like, I feel that when you present these opportunities to your children, you're still going to allow them to make the decision. You aren't here to decide who they are, what they can do, who they can be. You're here to show them different options, and it's up to them to make the decision. And so I feel that even though like you want them to have a plan, you don't really care so much as to what that plan is. You just want to know that they have thought about it and that they have an idea of where they want to go, who they want to be, what they want to do. And as long as they have something in mind and you feel confident that they're actively thinking about it, I feel that's you feel comfortable with it. And then we've got the Seven of Cups here, which talks about like having a lot of options. And so I don't feel like you're going to be somebody who constricts your children. You know, you're going to allow them to express themselves in a variety of ways. You know, you could have a daughter and maybe you stick her into ballet and she's in it for, you know, 5 years, and then she gets to be like, I don't know, we'll say she's like 9, and she comes to you and she's like, parent, I don't like ballet. I hate ballet. And you could be like, okay, is there something else that you would rather do? And they might be like, yeah, I want to play baseball. And you might be like, cool beans, let's do it. Let's get you into, you know, a little league. Or maybe you have a son and your son is like, parent, I hate football. I can't stand football. And you're like, okay, son, what would you rather be doing? I want to act. Like, I want to be involved in theater. And so maybe you start getting them involved in like the community theater. And you know, there's no judgment there about, well, you're a boy, you're supposed to do this, or you're a girl, you're supposed to do this. You just want them to be applying themselves in some way, and you want them to be exploring different interests and building up their personality and their qualifications. And I think that's really beautiful. You know, I do. I love that, because there are some parents out there who are just like so obsessed with defining the path that their children go down. And if that child doesn't follow that path, you know, that parent can just like lose it. And I don't feel like you're going to be like that at all. I also feel like you're not going to be somebody that carries your children through everything. I feel like you are going to be a parent who says, you know, here's an opportunity. Now it's up to you to do something with it. Like, I'm not going to be there for the rest of your life. I'm not going to be able to be making decisions, you know, when you're 20, 30, 40, 50. So I'm presenting this opportunity for you, but it's going to be up to you whether you succeed or you fail, whether you triumph or whether you give up. So we're going to see now, like, what strengths you may have as a parent. What strengths is group number 1? We're going to have the Two of Wands in reverse. What strengths does group number 2 have as a parent? The Two of Swords upright. So we have 2s here. And like I said, these 2s might be, we've got 1, 1, we've got 2, 2, 2. What strengths are group number 2? Did I say 1 previously? I don't know. What strength is group number 2 going to have as a parent? And then the Page of Cups in reverse. That's interesting. So when we look at 2s, we're oftentimes thinking of decision making. And we've got the Two of Wands in reverse and the Two of Swords upright. Now, wands tend to be about like creativity and action. And so what I feel from this Two of Wands in reverse is, once again, what we were already talking about, which is that you are not going to force your child into a box. You are not going to try to define and create the path for your child. It's just kind of like, you know, if your kid comes up to you and goes like, hey parent, you know, I need to take one more class to fulfill like my God, I don't know what it is. I've totally, is it extracurricular? But, you know, not one of the core classes. And they're like, I don't know which one I want to take. I kind of want to take photography. But then again, I also want to, I don't know, what other class? I want to take clay. What should I do? And I feel like you're not going to be the kind of person who makes that decision for your kid. You might be somebody who discusses with them, like, what are the benefits of each class? Why do they enjoy each class? What are the cons of each class? But at the end of the day, like, you are going to leave that decision up to your child. We've got the Two of Swords here, which can talk about being at a standstill, you know, and it's like really interesting that we have with this one, we have these two swords, they're crossed, and then we've got, I think this is a blue jay atop of a nest, with a blindfold over its eye. And when we think of swords, we think of air energy. We think of the mind and of communication. So once again, I feel like this is really talking about not making decisions, not telling your child what they need to do in terms of like how to live their life. You know, if they need to clean their room, you're 100% going to tell them, kid, you need to clean your room. But when it comes to allowing themselves, when it comes to them making decisions, you're going to allow them to do it. And you know, that can come in terms not just like in making decisions, but also in intellectual pursuits, intellectual thought, like processes and stuff like that. I feel that really you want your child to be somebody who is a critical thinker. And so when it comes to many discussions, you might not necessarily take a stance on something. You might allow this child to kind of work through it themselves. You know, like if there's a moral dilemma, you might play devil's advocate a little bit, just so that they can have a different perspective to look through and be challenged intellectually and forced to kind of observe both the perspectives and come to the conclusion on their own, like what is right and what is wrong. I do want to get a clarifier for this Page of Cups in reverse. We've got the Six of Cups in reverse. You know, the Page of Cups is somebody who comes forward with kind of like emotional communication, emotional responses. And the Six of Cups in reverse can really talk about like letting go of an attachment to the past. And so I feel that even though you might be somebody who is a little bit more stern in your parenting style, you aren't going to be the person that allows emotions to linger. You aren't going to be like, well, my kid pissed me off the other day because like they talked back to me, so I'm going to be passive aggressive and until they apologize. I feel that you're going to be the kind of person that either, if you feel it needs addressing, if it's something that's serious enough to address, you will address it and then just kind of let it go. Or like if you feel that just kind of it's like, well, this isn't one of the battles that we should fight. Like they're a teenager, they're kind of moody, so they snapped at me, you know, I'm not going to take it personally. I also feel that this is representative of letting go, like not holding your family to a standard based upon the past. So like with this ritual card we talked about, about potentially bringing aspects from your childhood into your own family. And I think, it's a very big possibility that you might do. But say, for instance, your family as a child prayed before every meal. And so that's something that you do with the family that you have created. And maybe you have like a teenage kid that's like, hey, parent, I don't feel comfortable praying. Like, I don't care if you guys do, but I'm not sure what I believe in spiritually. And I don't want to pray. I don't feel like you would be somebody who would become like indignant at that and berate your child for it. I think you just be like, okay, you don't have to pray. I also feel like you're not going to expect your child to stay the same for the rest of their life. You understand that people go through phases, and that as we grow from like an infant to an adolescent to a young adult, we will at times make drastic changes. So if your child and you really liked to watch, I don't know, Bob Ross videos when they were like 8, and at 13 they're like, parent, I'm not really into Bob Ross anymore. I think this is boring now. I don't think you're going to get like super emotionally upset about it. Like, you're just going to be like, okay, and maybe you guys find something to replace that bonding time with, or maybe you don't. You know, I feel like you're going to be somebody who acts more out of your head space than out of your heart space, which can be a benefit. It can also be a negative. You know, we want to really work on that balance. So what's a negative, like what's a weakness that group 2 will have as a parent? We've got the 10 of Swords in reverse. What is a weakness that group 2 will have as a parent? We have the Queen of Swords in reverse. Lots of mental energy here. Now, what's a weakness? And then the 2 of Pentacles. I want to get a clarifier on this 10 of Swords. Let me clarify this 10 of Swords. This Knight of Cups. You know, so this kind of makes me think, I'm a huge fan of Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials series. And I think the HBO adaptation is just beautiful. And Lyra is describing how she can read the alethiometer, which, for those of you who don't know, it's a compass that has symbols all around. And to ask a question, she moves the dial and points to different symbols, and then allows the alethiometer to move other dials to point to symbols. And usually someone isn't able to read the alethiometer unless they've done extensive studies on it. But of course, this is a novel, and she just kind of learns how to tap into it. And she's talking about like how the different symbols have different layers of meanings, different levels of meanings. And she just kind of has to let the information flow through her so that she can see, like, okay, it's not layer 1, it's not layer 2, it's layer 15. That's the right interpretation for this use of this image. And that's kind of how I feel like tarot is. I think with the 10 of Swords in reverse, clarified by the Knight of Cups, I think sometimes emotional situations will overwhelm you. You know, knights are representative of messages, you know, and with the 10 of Swords being in reverse, it can talk about letting a burden go, but it can also talk about being defeated, collapsing under pressure. And that's how I'm kind of taking this right now, is you may struggle to handle emotions because emotions can sometimes feel incompatible with rationale, I think. And it seems as if, as a person in general, and particularly as a parent, it's easier for you to focus on the logical method of reasoning and expressing oneself. But when emotions are involved, it almost might feel like you kind of short circuit. I do want to see what this Queen of Swords in reverse is about as well. And it is the Four of Pentacles in reverse. This is an interesting one. It's kind of like this mental. I'm going to refer to the book a little bit to see. Where's the swords here? Apologize for the technical difficulties. Oh, okay. So the Queen of Swords in reverse can talk about being like a mental blockage, being very stubborn. And when we have the Four of Pentacles in reverse, it can talk about letting things go, usually in more like of a materialistic sense. And so with the Queen of Swords being in reverse, clarified by the Four of Pentacles in reverse, I think the struggle is that you may have too high of an expectation for how much your child can do or provide for themselves at different stages in their life. Because maybe it's something that you were able to do at their age. And so you just assume that they can. But maybe you're not taking into consideration like how times have changed, or that maybe your child has like a different learning style, or maybe they do have like a limitation. Like for instance, say your child is suffering from severe depression, and maybe you have never gone through severe depression. And so you might kind of feel that depression doesn't exist in the way that society says it does. You know, you feel like maybe it's just a weakness of the mind that you have to overcome, and that it's not necessarily a response to a chemical imbalance in the brain that needs like potentially cognitive behavioral therapy and medication. And so let's say you have a child that's experiencing a severe episode of depression, and like they're not showering, they're not eating, they're not getting out of bed, they're missing school, their room is a pit, and they're just sleeping all day. It might be hard for you to conceptualize like, okay, my child is really going through something here, and like maybe they need to go see a therapist. Maybe they need to go get some medication to help balance out their brain chemistry. Instead, you might kind of think that, you know, you need to give them some tough love, ground them, take away their video games, take away their cell phone, tell them that, like, you know what, this is all in your head. You just need to get up and get out the door. And I think that's kind of where, this is coming from. There may be some mental limitations that you have that extend into your parenting. And then we have the Two of Pentacles, which is about balance, but it can also mean like imbalance, So where's this, how does this Two of Pentacles apply? And we'll take it all. Okay, the Ten of Wands in reverse with the Star. So I feel like there's kind of this misconception about the burden or lack thereof and how easy it might be able to overcome it. So for instance, if we're talking about depression again, feeling, communicating to your child, like, all you got to do is go for a walk. You'll be fine. Get some fresh air. And not really taking into consideration the actual limitations that depression causes and the extensive assistance that it can require in order to combat it and manage it. And so we're going to see like what kind of relationship you're going to have with your child or your children. This is so funny because I literally got the High Priestess for pile number 1 as well. Okay, what kind of relationship is group number 2 going to have with their child or children? The Page of Wands in reverse. And then the Seven of Swords in reverse. I'm just seeing a lot of familiar cards here. So I do see the High Priestess as kind of presenting yourself as being someone who has all the answers. And you may not always be able to communicate it in a way that really makes sense to your children. I don't necessarily think that you're going to be the kind of parent that goes like, this is just the way that it is. I mean, maybe, but I do feel like you're going to have your own reasoning and your own rationale. It just may not translate well with your child, and that could be some kind of like disconnect that occurs because of generational differences, of cultural differences, of different life experiences. We've got this Page of Wands in reverse, which I see as I think you're going to be the kind of parent that doesn't do things for your child. You're going to expect your child to do things. Like I said, you're willing to make an offering with this Ace of Pentacles. You're willing to present an opportunity for them, but you're not willing to do the labor for them. That's going to be their responsibility. And then we have the Seven of Swords in reverse. I do feel that means that like there's going to be a blunt honesty between you and your kids. Like you're not going to be somebody who hides anything from your children. You're going to be someone who is very like, tell it how it is. What you see is what you get. And, you're not, I don't think, playing any mind games. You're not beating around the bush. You're not trying to shield them from anything. If there's something that you feel that you need to reveal or discuss or confront them about, like, you are going to do it. I see you as kind of a little bit more of a hard knock parent than the previous pile, but like not in a bad way. You may need to work a little bit on like emotionally connecting with your children and being more open-minded when it comes to like your expectations. But overall, like I can really appreciate how you want your children to develop the skills for themselves, and you are open to like allowing them to explore their identity, just as long as like they have kind of a plan or something in mind. So we're just going to get a message from the universe. These are related. Like, these are cards that are related to a chakra, and we'll get into that. So what advice, what guidance do you have for group number 2? Relationships are assignments. That's an interesting point of view. What I really feel like, and we'll look into this too, we'll get into the book, is that to remind you that you are not only the teacher when you have a family, you are also a student. You know, you are learning how to parent and how to help raise your children in ways that will allow them to be the healthiest and happiest versions of themselves. And when we are students, we don't know everything, and it's okay not to know everything. I think you just need to be a little bit more open-minded that you're not going to have all of the answers. But we're going to see what chakra this relates to. 118. That goes with, it's called the Earth Star, which is found around 6 to 12 feet below the feet. It is one of the higher chakras that become available to us when our vibration is raised through the ascent of the Kundalini. It is a holding space and anchor that reminds us why we have chosen to incarnate upon the earth and how we can master our spiritual gifts during this lifetime. It's like an inner earth that holds all of the earthly wisdom that has been gathered over millennia. It's about taking responsibility for our path and our spiritual progress. Their messages help us to integrate all of our spiritual learning with being human. When we think of raising our vibration, we often get the idea that it's about ascending beyond the body, when in fact it's about becoming fully embodied and integrated with the planet in order to make the greatest difference. Earth Star energy invites us to recognize our capacity to initiate great change starting within. And I feel like that kind of pertains to you because it's like, you seem like a very grounded person. And so it may be time for you to kind of explore beyond being grounded. And, you know, that could mean getting more into spirituality, but it could also just mean exploring your emotions and exploring your creative side and learning to think more abstractly and not so concretely. So, no connection or relationship happens by accident. There are many opportunities to learn in every interaction we have with others. Sure, there can be toxic and draining relationships, but through these, we gain a deeper sense of who we are, the gifts we have, and the strength we can draw on to overcome adversity. Nothing in the universe is set in stone. Everything is constantly changing according to the workings of human intentions and divine laws. It's not that everything happens for a reason. It's more that we have the opportunity to find reason in the happenings. The universe isn't setting up harmful situations for us to learn from. The assignment is acting on what we've learned. When you draw this card, you are being called by the universe to assess all you've learned from your past relationships. Don't make the same mistake twice, for if you fall into old patterns, your past will become your present, and that's not what will serve your joy. Vibe of the day, I find reason in every happening. So, group number 2, that's where I'm going to leave you with this reading. I hope it was helpful. If it was, I would love to hear how in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, pile 3. So if you chose the moss agate, then this is going to be your reading about what kind of parent you'll be. And the moss agate really helps with like emotional balance and is connected to the heart chakra. So we'll see how that aligns with your reading today. I'm very interested to get into this because the past 2 piles have had their similarities, but also vast differences. And I'm curious to see what's going on here. So we have this card which says Homeland and Foundation. We have New Moon in Aquarius, Open Up to Change. We have card number 1 with Evil Eye, Protection. And we have this card right here. And it says number 47, The Persistent, with the affirmation, I hold fast to my goals and ideals as I persevere. And I really feel that there is so much to say here. So if we look at this Homeland card, I feel that this can be interpreted in so many different ways. So if you are somebody who has been living away from your homeland, whether you had previously lived there and ended up moving away, or maybe you have like a strong connection to your homeland, but you've never actually lived there. Like, say you are Siberian American, first generation. And I think this can correspond with, like, maybe you end up, as you get older and build a family, decide to move to Siberia. Or even, if you are living in the United States, maybe you were born in Oklahoma, but you moved to California for college and have been there for several years and decide that you want to move back to Oklahoma. So I do feel that this could represent raising a family where your roots originated. I also feel that this can talk about bringing in the traditions of your homeland. Like if you're Irish American, really prioritizing bringing Irish traditions into the growth of your family. I think this can also, because we have, a map here and a globe, talk about traveling. You may be somebody who really enjoys traveling and feel that it's important for your children to explore the world as well, whether it's nationally or internationally, to see what different lifestyles look like, what different cultures look like, to see a broader perspective beyond their own hometown. And overall, I feel that foundation is really important. Like, you want something solid for your family. So I do feel that even if you do move at some point, I feel overall that while you're raising your family, you are going to be relatively sedimentary. Like, there's going to be a childhood home that they grow up in, and they're going to be able to maintain the same friends. And there's going to be this level of consistency that you really prioritize that you may not have had growing up as a child. Now we have the new moon in Aquarius with open up to change. And Aquarius is a really interesting sign. My best friend's Aquarius. Hey, Rye. But Aquarians kind of get a bad rep a little bit. They are a fixed sign, so they are not typically thought of as individuals who adapt very well. They tend to be viewed as kind of emotionally detached and more logical, and people who are kind of like, they critique others or may criticize others, but they're also individuals who I find to be able to think very abstractly. They can look beyond what is immediately in front of them and find alternate solutions that other people may not have been able to see. And so I do feel that, especially with this being a new moon, and new moons are often signifiers of change, making intentions, that you are going to have a parenting style that allows for growth in your family. I feel that you would encourage your children to explore their identities, their interests, and this, if there were kind of relationship changes, like, say you have a child that is really attached to your hip when they're younger, but as they grow older, they may become more independent. You may find that difficult, and it may be something that stresses you out or concerns you, or you're just kind of disheartened about, because you really valued the way in which the relationship operated in the past. But I think you would also understand, like, this is just a normal part of a child growing up, and I need to honor their independence, because I don't want to smother them. I don't want to make them dependent upon me I want them to learn how to operate as individuals so that when they leave home, and even before then, they're able to problem solve, they're able to stand up for themselves, they have a strong sense of identity and confidence. And in that respect, with this evil eye protection, I feel that really shows that you are going to be a protective person over your children, that you are going to want what is best for them, and that you are going to take an interest in their mental health, in their physical health. And so if they are doing something that may be harmful to themselves, I think like you will be somebody who steps in and interferes. Or if you notice maybe they're having problems at school, like being bullied, I think you would be the kind of parent who would not just tell your child like to ignore the kid, but to actually be somebody who goes to the school very adamantly and says, like, we need to develop a resolution for this because this isn't okay. Understanding potentially that like the other kid or kids may have stuff going on with themselves that makes it more complicated, because sometimes when people, especially like children, are acting out and being cruel and rude, it might be because their home life is difficult, or maybe they've been bullied in the past, or other issues that come into play beyond just this idea that like they don't like someone. But even taking that into consideration, that there may be other factors influencing the bullies, like at the end of the day, you want something resolved so that the other kids can behave appropriately and are corrected, and your child can go to school feeling safe and respected. I also feel that you may be a little bit protective over yourself as a parent and like your parenting style. There may be some insecurities you have about like if you're doing this right, because you may, I think, parent in what could be considered an unorthodox way. I think you might be a parent who tries to improve upon parenting styles. You may be somebody who will not spank a child. You may be somebody who allows their child, for the most part, like privacy, like you might not be one of those parents that is adamant that their kid keep their door open or whatever. If your child comes out as like trans or genderqueer, you may be more readily able to accept that and honor like their preferred pronouns. Or you may be somebody that like lets them dye their hair, or things like that. And you may get judged for that by others, or you may perceive that there would be judgment for you for doing that. And I think like you're just going to defend your position on that because you are trying to be a parent that's compassionate and open-minded. It's interesting that between this evil eye protection card and this new moon in Aquarius, open up to change, there is a connection to like technology, because when you read the book for the new moon in Aquarius card, it does talk about this card being a positive omen for things related to technology and like online dating and stuff. So you might meet your partner through online dating. You might, if these are children that you don't conceive, you may find someone who is able to donate their sperm to you, or to like, well, I mean, that would end up being you conceiving a child if you have a uterus, but you get the gist. Or like you might find somebody who is able to be a surrogate, or this might be, you researching like adoption agencies or foster care or something like that. This could also indicate, I think, you might be somebody who ends up working from home, whether you are just a stay-at-home parent or you work remotely for some sort of business. And then we have the persistent with I hold fast to my goals and ideals as I persevere. Now, what's really interesting about this card is the booklet describes this character as being very blind. Like, this character cannot see, and yet they're able to still experience life through their other senses. And so you may end up being a parent who has some sort of disability, or you may have a child that has some sort of disability. And I mean, that could range anything from like a cognitive delay, a personality disorder. It could be like a physical limitation, and that may be something that makes parenting more difficult, whether it's because your child has some sort of difference or you do, but you're not somebody who is going to give up. And especially in the difficult times, you know, if your children go through a period of where like maybe they're just really irritable all the time and agitated and confrontational, like you're not going to be somebody who gives up on them. You are going to continue to persist in developing your relationship and expressing yourself and trying to relate with them. I do also feel like this continues to demonstrate that you'll be somebody who is in some way creative in the way that you connect with your children, and that could literally be like maybe you and your child or children bond over creativity, like writing or dancing or music, or that you just, as you parent, begin to learn different techniques, and when you see that maybe this technique doesn't work for this child, you might find an alternate technique or manipulate the original one to see like if that will be a better fit. I also feel that this really talks about being compassionate and emotionally intellectual. So the book talks about, you know, how we shouldn't, as people who, you know, if we are people who can see, who have sight, we shouldn't need somebody to confront us who doesn't have sight to show us like how much we should appreciate our senses. So I feel like you appreciate yourself and you appreciate others for the qualities that they have, and like your compassion is just very organic. And so I want to see first like what kind of parenting style that you would have, if it's going to be kind of more emotional or intellectual, if you're going to be like more hands-on, because I think that's just really interesting. You know, we all have different ways that we learn, different ways that we express ourselves, and that would, I think, really apply as well to parenting style. That didn't go as planned. Oh well. So, what is Group 3's parenting style? We've got the Page of Swords upright. What is Group 3's parenting style? What is Group 3's parenting style? The Fool in reverse. What is Group 3's parenting style? And the Hanged Man in reverse. Interesting. So with the Page of Swords upright, I feel that what that indicates is you are going to be somebody who is very quick to communication. You are somebody who, whether it's, you know, your child comes home from school and you just like, you want to have some small talk with them, see how their day has been going, talk about how your day has been going, see, you know, how their friends are doing, and just kind of maintain that communication and that connection with them. I feel that also demonstrates that when there are going to be situations that may be challenging, like if you feel that there's been a misunderstanding, or if you feel like there's been an argument or something, that you are going to take action immediately. You know, you're not going to be somebody who avoids the conversation and dismisses it. Like, I think you're going to be somebody who is just like, we need to talk about this, you know, and it's going to be a genuine conversation. Like, it's not going to be you necessarily talking at the child. It's going to be you having a conversation with them. There was something else I wanted to say in this. Oh my God, what was it? It was literally right there. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. I feel that you are going to be communicating with your child very early on too. So especially like if you conceive this child or if you help in the conception of this child, I feel that you are going to be somebody who is like, if you have the uterus, you know, talking to the baby inside the womb, reading to it. And well, I mean, even if you don't have the womb, but you have access to the person who has the womb. You know, and when the child is like really young, even before they start talking, I think you are really going to use your voice, reading stories, talking to them, because even if they aren't able to respond right away, and even if they may not be able to understand everything you are communicating, you have this belief that it's just, first of all, that children are capable of much more than we give them credit for. And secondly, that they are very quick learners. And I think you want to be somebody who really encourages your child to develop their skills as much as possible, as early as possible. And you want to see them grow to their fullest potential. So we got the Fool in reverse, which I feel is once again related to this Foundation card. I feel that because the Fool upright talks about like new beginnings and running off on new adventures, and I feel that it's really, your parenting style really prioritizes consistency and a foundation. And so, you know, although I think you will be somebody who does encourage your children to try new things and experience new things and consider different perspectives, I think you want them to also feel like they can genuinely grow somewhere, because when you move someone around a lot, coming from me, who by the time I was 18, I lived in 13 different homes, and it wasn't even, we were moving from town to town, you know, or city to city or state to state. Like, we were just moving neighborhoods most of the time. I really learned like not to get attached. It wasn't until I was an adult that I actually stayed anywhere for longer than like 2 or 3 years. So it's difficult under those circumstances to develop a sense of stability, and it's difficult to really get attached to anybody. And so I feel that, you know, you want your children to really feel comfortable digging their roots during the childhood and feeling like they can mature in the different ways in their life. Like, you know, if possible, that they can maintain long-term friendships throughout their childhood and adolescence, that if they get involved in an activity, that they can be a part of that team, a part of that activity for the long haul. You know, like me, I started doing ballet when I was, I don't know, probably 6 or 7, a little bit older than what you would typically start ballet with a child. And it took me quite a bit to feel comfortable doing it, but I only ended up doing 1 season, and then we ended up like moving to a different state to help take care of my terminally ill grandfather. And I was such an anxious, insecure child that I was like, no, I'm not joining another ballet troupe. Like, I'm not doing it. And I mean, ballet can be problematic in many ways. Like it drastically changes like the way a child's body develops, and with how competitive the industry is, the culture of it does tend to inadvertently encourage eating disorders. But it's something that for a long time, I really wish I would have stuck with. Like, I really enjoyed the one season that I was part of ballet. And, you want your children to have that sense of security and familiarity. And then we've got the Hanged Man in reverse. Now, I am a little bit curious to get some more information on that, because the Hanged Man in reverse can kind of be about, I think there's usually multiple meanings to how we can interpret a card, and it really depends on the other circumstances that are involved. And so when we think of the Hanged Man in reverse, it can talk about like not being willing to see a different perspective and being stuck in our own heads. Or it can be about like taking the wisdom that we have learned over the course of considering different perspectives and coming out of that contemplation in order to apply what we have learned. So I'm interested, and now that I say it, I think it's that second one. But we're going to see, can we clarify this Hanged Man in reverse? I got 3. We've got the Knight of Pentacles, which is a slow card, but a reliable card. We've got the Ace of Wands in reverse. And then we've got the Moon in reverse. Okay, so I think it is related to the second interpretation that I was talking about, and it's this mentality of trying not to jump the gun. This Ace of Wands to me in reverse is talking about not starting something, and then it's a delay in action. And then we've got the Moon in reverse, which is about coming into clarity, revealing illusions. And then this Knight of Pentacles, which is moving forward. And so it feels as if this Hanged Man in reverse is talking about how, as a parent, you are going to be somebody who tries to have the broadest understanding that you can before you make a decision. And I think that's something that, there could be downsides to that potentially. When we take too long to make decisions, it can cause delays on, it can be that we're being indecisive, and that can create its own complications. But if this is done in a way that's well moderated, then I think that this is something that your children will really appreciate, because whether it's something that involves not acting towards them until you know what their position is in a situation, like, I don't know, if they were out too late, you're not going to be someone who's going to jump down their throat. Like, they're going to come home and you're going to be like, okay, I'm glad you're home, but we're going to have a talk about this. And maybe you thought originally like they were being inconsiderate, and they were just like, no, Mom, Shelly's car just died. And I was going to call you, but then I didn't think it was going to take that long for someone to come jump her car. So we were just like chilling and talking and stuff and watching YouTube videos until they got here. And I lost track, and I'm sorry. And, then that gives you reason to oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that you're safe. So we're going to look to see what some of your strengths as a parent will be. What are some of Group 3's strengths going to be as a parent? We've got the Ace of Cups. And that's such a fun Ace of Cups. You know, it's almost like you would imagine the Two of Cups or even the Three of Cups, because it's like this celebration. The Ace of Cups is usually just like one person like handing a cup to another person, or like just offering it, like one person or one cup. And there is only one cup on here, but they're having a really good time with that cup. What are going to be some of Group 3's strengths? I've literally had the Seven of Swords in reverse come out for every single pile. I think for both of them it was, I know for pile 1 it was definitely positive. I think for pile number 2 it was positive. I can't remember though. Okay, what's okay, we've got the Ace of Coins in reverse with the Five of Wands and the Eight of Wands. Oh, okay. I got it. It's very cool here too, because like we have a variety of energy. In pile number 1, it was almost all wand and fire energy, which was very interesting because it's not what I had expected. So with the Ace of Cups here, I really feel it's talking about how you are going to have like this authentic emotional connection with your children. I do think, you know, I do see that we have a lot of air to consider. I mean, yeah, we've got the Knight of Pentacles and the Moon and you know, the Ace of Wands, and those aren't air energies. But it does seem like you are somebody who is going to be using your rationale a lot in your relationship and your parenting style with your children. But I think you're also going to be somebody who's very emotionally deeply connected to them. And with this Ace of Pentacles, you know, there's always going to be this sense of like innocence and love and joy. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to go through hard times, but you're going to have this playful connection with your children. And I think that's going to endure even into their adolescence and then into their adulthood. We've got the Seven of Swords in reverse, which to me signifies that you are going to be an honest person. You are going to be somebody who doesn't hide things from your children, or even, you know, if at times you do hide something from your children, you are going to be somebody who comes forward and says, you know what, I didn't tell you everything, or this is something I was waiting to tell you, but now I feel this is an appropriate time. And so there is going to be a level of honesty that you have with your children. You may at times kind of censor yourself or hold information back, but it's not because you don't trust your children, and it's not because you are trying to lie to them. It's because potentially you may see that it's not the right time. That could be because they may be too young to understand the complexity of the situation, or you may see that they are going through something, and so it's best to kind of allow them to process whatever it is that they're going through before you come in and provide this information for them. And then we have with the Ace of Pentacles in reverse and the Five of Wands and the Eight of Wands, what that means to me is that you are going to be, what's the right word? I want to say selective, but I know that's not it. Discerning. You're going to be discerning. And so for someone like growing up, I was a little bit of a naughty child. And to be fair, I did not have good examples growing up, and my house was a war zone. So I didn't really have the ability to grow under like healthy circumstances, and that's something that I've had to adjust in my adulthood. But I knew that a lot of times if there was something I wanted, I could throw the biggest temper tantrum and I would get it. Or I could be really manipulative and I would get it. And I think what this is saying, because, we've got the 5, which can talk about being combative. 5 of Wands can talk about combat and fights. And the 8 of Wands is something that, like, is coming at you really quickly. But then the Ace of Pentacles in reverse is like holding back on an offer, keeping something to yourself. And so I feel what this is saying is that there is going to be a strength in you where you're not going to be the kind of person to just give your kids whatever they want, especially like in the sense of them being naughty. Like, you are going to provide for them what you can, and I think you will definitely indulge your children, but they're not going to be able to manipulate you, and you're not going to cave under pressure. You are going to hold firm. Like, Katie, you can scream all you want about getting that Barbie, but I told you that you were going to have to wait until Christmas. And that's that. And that's something that can be very difficult for parents to do. I know in my situation, especially with my mom, she was going through a toxic marriage, and then she had to deal with my brother's dad, and all the junk that he was doing to my brother. And then my brother, who was several years older than me, like, he wasn't just living in one toxic household like I was. He was living in 2. And so neither place was safe for him. So he was getting into trouble. Like, so me screaming and throwing a fit, like, she didn't have the mental energy to have that kind of discernment, It was easy for her to cave because there was a lot of other stuff going on. And I just feel like you were going to have that composure where you're just like, no, you will get this at Christmas. That's what I told you. And it doesn't matter how poorly you behave or even how well you behave. Like, I am going to stick to this deadline, to this promise. And that's very admirable. So let's see what kind of complications or like what struggles you may have as a parent, what challenges you may have as a parent, your weaknesses, because we all got them. I don't know how I want to take this one. Okay, so I'm going to take the 5 of Cups in reverse as a clarifier for the Queen of Swords. I think, oh, you know what? We're going to get a couple more. But I know where I'm going with that one. And then the 6 of Swords. And then the King of Wands. Sorry, this is the pile that I chose. And for myself, like before, like just based off of the crystal. And so whenever I see the King of Wands or the Knight of Wands, I have a very specific person in mind. And I'm like, yo, that's my weakness. So the Queen of Swords upright, clarified by the 5 of Cups in reverse. I definitely think that you may have a little bit of an anxious attachment style when it comes to your children emotionally. And that may stem from like abandonment issues or different kinds of wounds that occurred in your younger years, whether that was through like a romantic relationship or friendships or as is often the case, like your family experience. So I feel that you are really going to struggle about like trying to keep the balance in your belief that your kids love you as much as you hope they do. Like when they're a baby, if they're crying all the time, it can be really stressful and you might feel like you're a bad mom or a bad father or bad parent. You may have this kind of swell of love in your heart, and you might just think like, well, they're not old enough to have those feelings for me. And you might worry about the relationship and how the emotional bond develops as they get older. I think you may sometimes question your methods of correction, because I do think that you understand that there needs to be, discipline and structure, but I think that there may be times when you worry about, like, did I make the right call? Like, was I too harsh? Is this going to negatively impact my connection with my child? And as they become older and more independent, like we talked about with, I think it was this Page of Swords card, but, if they begin to grow a little bit more distant, you may really struggle with that and feeling like your position in their life is less important than it used to be. And I think you're really going to struggle with trying to, like, keep that, what would you call it? Kind of like that disaster thinking, that like catastrophic thought process in, because there's going to be a part of you that rationalizes like human, you're fine. Like, your kids love you. This is normal. It's normal for this baby to cry. Like, you've tried everything. Sometimes you just gotta let them cry it out. Or, I know that Abby really wanted that doll, and if I give it to her right now, then it's just gonna reinforce that she doesn't like that. I'm somebody who is willing to that I am somebody who has loose boundaries, I suppose, and that's not going to be good for her in the long run. Or, like, it's okay that Teddy is talking to me less and he's in his room more often. Like, his grades seem to be fine at school. He doesn't have an attitude when he's home. He's just growing into a young adult and he needs his independence. And I think that's going to be a little difficult for you. I'm curious about this Six of Swords in reverse. What's this Six of Swords in reverse? With Justice here. Now, we did talk about how you are somebody who is going to be rather open with your children, and someone who is open-minded and having discussions with them. But I think sometimes you may struggle to find a solution. Like, if, for instance, your child is failing a class in school, or like skipping school, you might try to talk with them about why they're doing this or why this is happening. You might try setting limitations and boundaries. And you may find that this child continues to rebel against that, or even like say that they're just struggling in a class and it's not because they're not studying. Like, say they're studying and they're paying attention and they're doing assignments, but it's just really hard for them to grasp the material. Whether the struggle or the challenge is intentional on their part or isn't, you may find it difficult to develop strategies that help you and or your child move forward. And that could be really frustrating because, I think you're going to try to maintain a balance of like being authoritative, but also being understanding and, or like trying to be somebody who, if your child has a learning disability, trying to be somebody who figures out a system that benefits them, that what are words? That, I guess, caters to their disability in a way that like allows them to understand the information and process it more effectively. I think that's going to be a struggle for you. I'm going to see what this King of Energy wand is, because I feel like it's a person. What's this King of Wands energy about? It's the Four of Cups in reverse. So, that I feel confirms that this King of Wands energy may actually be a person. When we're looking at court cards, they typically do represent people. So, and the Four of Cups in reverse and upright, is all about like emotional connection and receptivity and release. So this King of Wands might represent another parental figure, whether that's like a biological parental figure or an adoptive parental figure, a guardian. You may be committed to this King of Wands energy. And the King of Wands is somebody who is a go-getter, and they are very passionate, and they are a trailblazer. They do what they want. And so that might create conflict with how you parent or how you want to parent if you are in a committed relationship with this person, or even if you are separated from this person but you are co-parenting. I feel like this is the person that's going to be able to manipulate you, because we have this Four of Cups in reverse, which is about like releasing the hold that you've had on your emotions, and so even though your child or your children might not be able to do so well with manipulating you, I think this King of Wands person is. This King of Wands, and it could be something as problematic as like, maybe it's your weekend to have the kids, but like if you're separated, but they guilt trip you into letting them have them for the weekend. And like, maybe there was something really important that you guys were like, you were supposed to be doing with the children, like something you were really excited for. Maybe you got tickets to a game or something, and they're like, no, like that didn't cost that much. There are basketball games all the time. Like, I want to take them out to Disney World, and so this person might be able to manipulate you into lowering like your boundaries. Or it could also be something like, baby, Chelsea really wants that doll. I know I'm giving the kids all different names. Chelsea really wants that doll. We can always get her something else for Christmas. So this could end up being a connection where it creates like a significant disharmony, and you may have to be cautious of like asserting yourself, and keeping up boundaries towards this person. Or it may just be kind of like they play devil's advocate, and that can still have consequences, but it might be more of in a playful way. This could also be especially like, this could be kind of representative of a potential toxic relationship, whether this King of Wands person is somebody that you're on again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again with, or this King of Wands could represent a multitude of people. There's nothing wrong with, like, especially if you end up being a single parent, really wanting to be with someone and having like a whole family unit and being able like to have someone to love you romantically. But just make sure that like you build up your self-worth. Dating when you are a single parent is perfectly fine. But on the same token, like, you have to keep in consideration the fact that your children are going to get attached, and like bringing in multiple people or the same person multiple times can be really stressful in a child, and it can cause like attachment issues. If you bring in the wrong kind of person, it can cause trauma to the child. And so I definitely think that this is just a connection you need to be cautious of. So we're going to see what your relationship with your kids is going to be like. This the devil upright. There's going to be, I think, a very strong attachment to them. The Two of Swords in reverse. And Death upright with the Nine of Pentacles. So you might actually, with this with this Nine of Pentacles card, end up being a single parent. Just because the Nine of Pentacles is somebody who is like in a single energy, but it could also be that you just have a really solid relationship with your child. The Death card, I think your relationship with your child or your children is going to constantly be evolving depending upon their needs, but I also think having children is really just going to change you, and I think it's going to be a positive thing. Now, with the Devil here and the Two of Swords, I do think that is a reminder to make sure that you maintain a balance in your relationship with your children, like, because this could potentially develop into a toxic attachment, and not like, just in the respect of where you might end up sacrificing too much of yourself for your kids, or you might end up sheltering your children too much. And so it's going to be really important for you to, allow that attachment to your children grow, but also to have a healthy frame of mind when it comes to your independence from them and their independence from you. So we're going to get a final message card. And this relates to a chakra. And it says, I am a light in the world. That is beautiful. And I think that's really reminiscent of the fact that, like, you are going to be the light for your children. You want to be somebody who is a really positive influence, that gives them a positive direction and warmth. Let's see what chakra it relates to. It's probably going to be that, like, tall chakra thingy. Yeah. So the Earth Star, which talks about helping us to integrate all of our spiritual learning with being human. And it invites us to recognize our capacity to initiate great change starting within. So I'm going to read it. It says, there is a light within us all, and that light will never go out. It existed before we were in our body and will exist beyond our lifetime. It is unborn, therefore it can never die. It's eternal, infinite. It's who we really are. That light has an opportunity to shine whenever it faces darkness. Darkness is not evil. It's simply uncertainty. Whenever we are facing a moment of uncertainty, it's an opportunity for our light to shine and our gifts to be shared. The universe is calling upon your light at this time. Don't hide it or dim it. Let it shine. You may have been holding back, feeling that there's a specific time for you to reveal yourself fully and shine. That time is now. When you begin to express who you are, you align with a higher power, and that presence reminds you why you are here and what you need to do next. In times of uncertainty, be the light that you have come to be. Vibe of the day, I remember why I am here. So I think this message can be applied in multiple ways. You may be in a situation where you are struggling to have a child, or there's no child coming into your life in the foreseeable future. And I think the universe is just encouraging you to keep that light on, to keep having faith about that. When you go through difficulties as a parent with your child and you get frustrated and you get overwhelmed, I think it's just a reminder to tune into your heart and don't allow that frustration, that fear, that anxiety, that that anger or whatever you may be experiencing at that time to shadow your heart. And I think it's also like, that your children are really going to stoke that flame in you, that they are going to be kind of a purpose for you, and that they're going to help you have a reason to continue to shine. So this was the longest one out of all three. I try to keep them all about the same, and this one, it was really difficult with these three piles to keep them the same time. So, whatevs. If this resonated with you, pile number 3, please let me know how in the comments down below. I think all 3 piles actually are going to be great parents. You just have different styles and different strengths and weaknesses. So I'll see you next time. Bye.